Welcome, everyone, to American Girls, the podcast. This is the podcast where we're reliving the American Girl series book by book. I'm Mary.
I'm still Allison.
Allison, we have a really big-time guest today.
We do. We are joined today by Emily Powell Bera, who I have known for about the length of an American Girl's lifetime, which is 10 going on 11 years. Emily, could you say hello?
Hi.
So we have been, I would say, in cahoots with Emily for at least 2 years about getting you on the show.
Yes, 100%. It's been like a thing I've been thinking about every time I listen to your podcast.
Oh, thank you. So I had the pleasure of meeting Emily, again, we won't say exactly when, but the lifetime of an average American girl at Mystic Seaport, where we were both interns. Mm-hmm. And I thought Emily was the coolest person in our cohort. I can say that now because it's been, more than 7 years. Emily had left a job that she didn't want to do anymore to become a maritime historian, which I thought was just really, really awesome. And we were all in this kind of hyper intensive experience. I later learned that Emily is a recovering Samantha. She is a lover of many things maritime. She has done archaeological work with things such as cannons, and I'm sure other fodder that we will talk about. Emily is currently a curator, and she works in a building that has a Dunkin' Donuts. Have you met anyone more interesting this week? I have not.
Welcome, Emily.
Thank you guys so much. This is, since you brought up coming on the show, we are in I don't know if I didn't check our co-stars before to see what was happening, but Brittany's free. Jessica Simpson owns her own name again.
Yep.
Christine Brown left Cody and the Sister Wives.
Wow.
Former Princess Mako is now in Hell's Kitchen. And I have found out that there's a maritime American Girl stall that I had no idea existed. And now I'm in love. So what a time to be alive, you guys. What a time to be alive.
My God. Wow. I mean, I what a great setting of the scene for this conversation. I love that you've brought the princess in the same conversation as Jessica Simpson and Brittany. Thank God Brittany is finally free, Comrade Brittany.
I can't believe it. I'm so excited for her. I've had lengthy conversations with my parents are both attorneys, and I've been arguing my own case for Brittany in my home. So I'm glad that people have been arguing this case for Brittany for real. And she can, dance on Instagram now and dance outside of her home in places she never got to travel to. It's what everybody should have the right to do.
So Emily, someone is behind you, and that someone is a Samantha.
Samantha.
She is a 1980s Samantha, but if I may, she is, and she's, I would say, in wonderful condition. I think the American Girl Hospital would put her in hospice, but we don't want that to happen to her. You were not a youth during the time of Caroline. Do you think that is your sliding doors? Had your life aligned where Caroline was your Samantha, how might you be different today?
I've thought about this.
Okay.
Because I didn't know her, and can I back up and talk about why Samantha is my treasure?
Yeah, take us to your origin story of American Girl. Where does it begin for you?
It begins at the Jersey Shore in 1988. We were probably listening to Tunnel of Love in the house, as one does.
Emily, please.
In my homeland. And I was 8 in 1988, and I got something that I wanted but didn't really want, which was a sibling. I got a brother. As an 8-year-old, you're sure. Yes, I want a sibling. You have an idea of what that's going to be, and then a baby comes home to an 8-year-old child, and you're this is not what I wanted at all. And something going on at the same time, and you guys have talked in a previous episode about catalog culture. The other setting that I need to share is that my house was full of catalogs, and I don't think people now understand Like, think of every ad you get on Instagram, but that's a catalog coming to your home. And if your parent ordered one item from a catalog, 600 other catalogs now come to your home
Mm-hmm.
of like adjacent products. I don't know like the mechanics behind it, but my mom had ordered something that American Girl catalog came to our home. Nobody I knew had this. It was, I mean, the price of this doll might as well have been $1 million, right? Because nobody had toys. Like, toys were so cheap in the 80s. Nobody had toys that were this expensive. And based on the catalog itself, I made up in my mind like the story that I thought went with these dolls. Another thing that had happened to me when I was younger is that, and it's like one of the clearest memories I have in my life, is Robert Ballard discovering the Titanic, which was on the television. I can see in my mind the grainy footage. I can't even like explain to an audience now what that footage would have been like. Your Ring camera has better visual graphics than this footage of the Titanic we were getting. It was like static with like little floaty things, and then all of a sudden you see this. And I was what I had to be like 5 or 6 by the time they were getting the footage back on the news. And this was like primetime news. This moment and baby Jessica in a well, which I won't go into, but I mean, are two standout moments
I
for the
mean,
news for me. But I became obsessed with this shipwreck. The idea that they've been looking for this ship, that it tragically sank, on its maiden voyage. You guys have gone into that. I won't dig too deep, but the first history paper I ever wrote in second grade was on the Titanic, and I drew pictures of little people, and I was pretty obsessed. There wasn't a lot of material on it because books didn't exist yet about finding it. There was only like, you know,
mm,
these, and that movie Raise the Titanic, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but I also have the image of like a weird poster from that, which is a man in like a diving suit with a rope over his shoulder, and he's pulling the Titanic out of the sea.
that's
That's up
bleak.
there with like Hugh Jackman in Les Miserables in the dry dock, like with the giant ship behind him, of like completely impossible maritime scenes, by the way. But this
Wow.
Titanic obsession was like a time period that I then became obsessed with. And when these dolls came, I wasn't really into, I don't want to like nag on other, I don't want to yuck anybody else's yum. Kirsten was like very folksy, which I wasn't into. Molly had to ration. I wasn't into that.
Honesty. Love it. Yes.
I wanted the doll that was most likely to have been on that ship. And she also had a sailor outfit for her summer fit. And she was my queen. And here's another hard truth that you guys might like excommunicate me for. But when the books came, so I got her for Christmas, the same Christmas. My brother came in June. She came in at Christmas time as like the compensation. I'm not going to say that about my parents, but you know what I mean. It was a very,
Yeah.
I got a lot
Yeah.
of presents that Christmas. And her little travel basket. My parents were divorced, so I was going back and forth, and I needed something to carry her in. And it was a huge surprise. And I mean, I loved her. What can I say?
Can I ask you? You refer to yourself as a recovering Samantha. So, what is it you're recovering from?
The book she came, the books came, and I hated them.
Can you say
Her
more? Like, what happened?
her story was not the story that I'd imagined in my mind.
So she's not on the
Um,
Titanic. You find out she's not on the
oh, she's
Titanic.
not on the Titanic. She's not like a
That's
good
difficult.
friend. Um,
Oh my God.
so
Coming in
so here's
hot.
another thing. Like my mom and my stepdad got married when I was 7, and I was introduced into his family. This is how I became a maritime person, by the way, who were big maritime people. They had boats, and this was a whole thing. Getting to know their family, it was like a foreign thing to me, that I was like another connection to this, my already like blooming maritime obsession. Here were people who like had grown up sailing and done this stuff, but they had 2 VHS tapes in their house, that were like child appropriate, and one was Shirley Temple's The Little Princess,
Love it.
and the other was the original Little Women, something that with June Allison and Peter Lawford.
Classic.
I had a huge Peter Lawford crush. I was obsessed. I know it's weird. I was obsessed with Little Women, and I got to choose a name for my grandmother, and I called her Marmee. I still do call her Marmee. And so in my mind, I imagined a more like Shirley Temple-esque Samantha, who was like good-hearted and good-spirited and around good people. Also, like revisiting that book, there are like a lot of problems with the Little Princess, but so I don't want to like advocate everything going on in that story, but but it was just not. She was not who the books were not what I wanted. So I was like, I forget you. Like I'm going to live my own pretend story. And there was a big tension with that for me because I also like to make displays in my bedroom. I had a bookshelf on which I like saved every object connected to sentimental things for me and made like, diorama-esque. Well, I guess now that I work in a museum, that's appropriate. But I had this real tension with like not wanting to play with her because I wanted her to remain in this pristine condition. And I think that's probably why my parents didn't get me more of her accessories, because they probably thought I wasn't playing with her. But in my mind, I would like tend to her, like not in my mind, in my bedroom, I was tending to her and making sure that she was like well cared for. And the one set of I got her like birthday her crystal set of ice cream parlor, like glasses and bowls and a tablecloth and a white dress that I got a second brother. I think that might have been when I got this second set, but they wrote on it with permanent marker.
Oh my gosh.
It was tragedy. It was a white dress. It's not the birthday dress. It's like a different one that has a collar. I still have the collar, but the dress half disappeared.
Do you still speak to that brother, or what's the deal?
I mean, on and off. It's been a real struggle these past years, 20 years or so, but no.
Follow-up question. Are you a member of the Titanic Historical Society?
I'm not.
Just curious.
I will tell you, and I can't believe I didn't pull these. I'll show this to you later. My mom knew someone who worked with props on the film, and I have a brandy snifter that Leonardo DiCaprio that was at his place setting in one of the scenes. And then the parents of very good friends of mine from high school went to the Titanic exhibit and got me coal from the Titanic, which of course I have like ethical issues with, but I'm not getting rid of it because it's Titanical. I have been to the Titanic Museum in Pigeon Forge as well.
Jealous.
Or if you live in Branson, Missouri, there's also a Titanic Museum there. They're owned by the same. I'm putting museum in air quotes. It's an experience though, and I highly recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Honestly, upon hearing your story, I feel like your youngest brother should write a thank you note to Valerie Tripp, because I don't know if he would be here. Like, I feel like the sliding door story goes the other way, right?
Yeah.
Like, Samantha is here because of your first brother, but perhaps the second brother is here because of Samantha.
100%.
Not biologically, but I think there's a case to be made.
Yeah. And I mean, I think any older sibling who had really younger siblings always had that issue of like, get out of my stuff. But like toddlers, it's not like a reasoning. You can't be like, don't knock my sea monkeys off the top shelf of my bookcase. Like,
those are fragile.
She was in my parents' house until you guys started making this podcast, and they brought her down to me, and I did a live unboxing for Allison on an Instagram video, or several Instagram videos. And I had not laid eyes on her in decades, so it was like really cool seeing. She's not in the best condition. She has a lazy eye. I actually have worked with a lot of artifacts that are plastics, and they're extremely problematic. So I'm really impressed that she's in the good shape that she is, because I also lived in, and this is like a common, it's not so common anymore, but I lived in an unair conditioned house growing up. So the worst thing for plastics is like big swings in temperature and humidity. And the
Mm.
Jersey Shore is extremely humid and extremely hot. And, she lived in that house between radiator heat in the winter and like gross humidity. And so, yeah, I'm kind of impressed her eyes are even in a workable condition, but she needs some help. She needs some help. So
I
that
mean,
could be a fun
honestly,
adventure.
like who doesn't need a little help at this point in time?
I mean,
I
I
mean,
know.
so I'm wondering, like, if we can pivot for a second, how do we
Yeah.
get from Samantha in the Titanic and your maritime journey as a
Hmm.
child into sort of like your professional interest as and like meeting Allison, like this whole like career
Yeah.
journey?
My parents, Allison's actually been there. My family has a cottage in Connecticut. And so I'd grown up going to Mystic Seaport as a kid. And like I said, my dad's family um, were were big into maritime and all things nautical. We would have dinner every Friday night, and in the summer we'd go out on the boat. And my grandfather recently passed away, and it's been really sweet actually revisiting these memories and thinking about this story to tell you guys, because I knew I wanted to do museum work always. Certain museum programs, depending on how you're studying them, also want you to be in like a realm of history while you're doing that work. And I ended up finding a maritime history program, a maritime studies program at East Carolina University. There are only a couple in the country that focus in that. And it was like, oh, of course, like I grew up, near Sandy Hook, near Asbury Park, where these buildings and these historic sites that I'd gone to with my family and had been part of the architecture of my childhood and my landscape were things that people were studying and were writing on and were, continuing to look at and preserve. And I was like, oh my gosh, this clicks. Of course, I'd been in college in DC and done some museum classes in undergrad, but after, kind of going into another career after college, to support my life and do something. I worked in marketing for a little bit. I was like, this, I want to go back to grad school. I want to do this museum thing. And this is like the most ideal fit. I couldn't believe that something like this existed. So I kind of hybridized this public history and maritime studies program. A lot of their focus was in underwater archaeology, which I don't do. I don't dive. My husband did. I met him there. But it opened up this whole new kind of adventure and context of looking at artifacts, material culture, and how impacted so many different historical areas are by the sea and waterways and ships and cargoes and things. Is just an exciting world to unbox.
So you kind of like grew up and became your own Robert Ballard.
I wish I would.
Wow.
I would gladly go to Woods Hole. I don't want to go down in that submarine though, you guys.
It seems claustrophobic. It seems like it's very tight.
I worked with artifact collections that belong to the Navy and some of their museums. They have pieces of those deep sea submarines and the glass on the windows, which is like, I don't know, maybe like, 5 or 6 inches in diameter. The glass is like ridiculous, like 12 inches thick. I don't want to be in that. I mean, that's why I don't dive. I don't want to be in that like deep sea. I don't want something to pop up in my face.
You want to be
I
on
mean,
the
the ship,
surface.
yeah, 100%,
Okay, that makes sense.
100%.
Do you think there is something to our kind of thesis that we put forward, episodes and episodes ago? Like, can you talk to us about what it might mean to be a boat girl or a ship girl? And am I outing myself by even differentiating them?
Wow.
When you said that to me, I had like a Brittany Broski kombucha meme moment where I'm like, I'm not a ship girl. And I was like, oh, go on. Like, oh, literally.
Are you a boat girl?
I'd never thought about, yeah, I mean, I'd never thought about it. And I also, mentioned like imposter syndrome things. I always think like somebody's more of something than I am. And, then I'm like, oh, no, I went to sailing camp. Like I went out on boats all the time. I study maritime history. I
Yeah.
work with maritime artifacts. I love maritime objects and historic sites. And I'm a maritime historian. Yeah, I guess I am a ship girl. It's a thing. Like I don't know. I mean, you were talking about like how there are horse girls. Like I don't know the different like categories within that, but I would say like within ship girl, boat girl, there are a ton of different categories. And like I was thinking when you first said it, the reason I was like, no, I was thinking of like no people I knew who grew up in New England who like heavily like worked on boats all summer, like taking people out on cruises and things like that, like and can like get on a any sailboat and like live for an amount of time. Like I can't, that's not me. But no, there's no like there's no gatekeeping in boat girl, ship girl. Like we're gonna accept like all people of the sea.
Do you have to be able to casually say of almost anything, my shoe is yar, and know what that means?
I'm glad you brought that up too, because not only do I know that Philadelphia story reference, but also in the classic film Failure to Launch with Matthew
Of
McConaughey
course. Wow, great
and
reference.
Sarah Jessica Parker, she gets them out of an improbable situation where he has tried to teach her to sail, I'm making air quotes again, on what is not his boat. And then the owner of the boat comes back and she says that quote. And that somehow
Wow.
convinces the owner that they're about to buy, that she's like looking to buy this ship. And I'm like, what?
What?
I'm like, this movie, first of all, the movie's weird anyway, but I'm like, no one knows this reference. Also,
Wow.
I've never heard anyone say, like, she's Yar, this boat is Yar. Like,
I think that's a new life goal for me is like I still don't know fully what it means. People after I said it on the show, people wrote to me and were like, Mary, you don't understand what you're talking about. And I was like, okay, but I know it's from
didn't you guys
Philadelphia
read the
Story.
definition though?
Allison probably read that to me and I almost immediately probably forgot it because that's just how my life goes. But I
It's
mean,
like, it's like a weird, like, it's seaworthy. She's
yeah,
fast. She's like, you know,
my problem is I
quick.
use it in non-nautical situations and I think that that's frowned upon.
No, it should, that 100% should happen.
Okay, wow. Okay, thank you. So, if I was like a New Englander out on a sailboat, Kennedy Light, you might say that's one type of ship
Here's
slash
another
boat
topic
girl.
that we can have a whole side podcast about. Let's not start talking about the Kennedys. I love them.
Okay, I can't go there with you because we'll be here all night and I
All
can't do
night.
that. We'll all be here all night. I can't. I should have
Um,
brought up my portrait. Allison bought me a
did you
giant painting of JFK. He might be on a boat. I should have brought it up and had it behind me.
did you watch the Ethel documentary on
Yes.
HBO? I mean, she's still sailing, in that documentary on that. What is that like? It has to be like a 30-foot sailboat.
I
She's
mean,
got like
casually
20
30
people
boat.
on it, and
Yep.
she's just casually, and that is hard, you guys. Like, to like actually operate a sailboat under sail that is that big in your 90s is like, I mean, I don't know if they staged that for 10 minutes, but
Maybe. But she's also in a place in her life, I'm sure, where she's like, YOLO. Like, who cares? Like, at this
oh,
point, if this
she
takes
was
me out,
YOLO. Are you kidding?
whatever.
She had like a seal, like an actual like seal, the animal that belongs in a zoo, like in the right? Weren't they
Yeah.
talking about like the menagerie?
Yes.
She's been YOLO
Correct.
the whole time, which is incredible for a woman that's had that many children.
Oh my God. All right. We'll have to
Yeah,
put a pin in that because I can't get
yeah, yeah,
into the
yeah. Yeah.
Kennedys now. And even with
No,
the re release of Red and the
but
Starlight
sorry.
track, you mentioned that there's many types of ship or boat girls. So
Mm-hmm.
there's like the New Englander who can be like ready to go on a sailboat seemingly anywhere. What are some other like subsections of a boat girl or a ship girl?
Yeah, I think, shout out to all my archaeologist friends who dive. And our program was in North Carolina in Blackwater rivers. They were diving in like you can't see what's in front of you, terror. And um, my husband worked on a project with the Queen Anne's Revenge, which is Blackbeard's flagship. And he was bringing cannon up from um, from the river where that shipwreck was located. So I think shipwreck people. I think um, I became really friendly with the historic costume historians at um, Mystic, who work with clothing and textiles and the crafts that surround that, like needlework, which is a hobby that I actually love and enjoy. I think there can be tons of things maritime culture touches so many things. So if you even like being at the beach, if you even like living in, a New England town that happens to be on the water, and food, fishing, so many things have to
How
do with
about
boats.
if you've
Like
only just watched Outer Banks on Netflix?
100%. I mean, I can tell you, I did not watch One Tree Hill, but One Tree Hill was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, where the battleship North Carolina is located. And in the parking lot, I was conserving an artifact for the battleship North Carolina. And when we'd go, in their parking lot was a basketball court that was a filming spot for the TV show. And it was this like basketball court on the river. And
The
when they
River
were,
Court? Excuse
did you watch
me?
the show? Do you know?
I mean, I kind of just gave myself away here. It's
Okay,
slightly pathetic, but yes.
so that basketball court is at the battleship North Carolina. And when they weren't filming, they'd take the nets down, the crew. At one point when we were there, they, I guess the plot of the show was that they were building like apartments or something near the river. So there was this like these weird construction like pieces set up and a sign for these condos. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if people know that like this is we're here at a like historic World War II battleship and also filming site for One Tree Hill.
Wow. So
And Dawson's
like,
Creek was filmed there too,
oh
and
my
the
God.
restaurant that Joey worked at is still in business, and you can go.
Thank
Please
you.
visit Wilmington, North Carolina.
I would love to hear like you tantalizingly referenced a project that your husband worked on and one that you've worked on. Like, can you maybe share some example projects that you've worked on that you think are really cool and like kind of give us a window into how this world works? Like, how does it work to conserve, artifacts from a ship that's been recovered, or how do you even bring up artifacts that have been in a river for hundreds of years? Like, how does this all happen?
So I actually didn't do the archaeological side. Very carefully is the answer to that question. And a lot like archaeology works on land, they make a grid, they follow that grid. The interesting thing, like people, we call them treasure hunters, people who like find shipwrecks and things on the shore and start taking pieces of them. The biggest thing for, not the biggest thing, but a big thing for archaeologists is they need to look at the entire wreck site. They need to look at where things have scattered, where things are located, despite the sea doing a lot of damage and shipwrecks being like the process of a ship sinking is very violent. Usually it's like a storm or something has gone terribly wrong. And they need to look at this entire site to understand what happened, why the pieces are where they are, and relate the material culture to the parts of the ship that they are found in or near. And then, they're often looking at the construction of the ship itself because ships and boats were built, mostly it's like a really vernacular craft. Like it's unique to shipyards, it's unique to regions of the country. And getting those details of construction means looking at exactly how it's laying right now and not deconstructing it necessarily to bring things to the surface. It's very much about like what can we see? And a lot of times bringing things to the surface is not the answer. You don't have the ability to treat every single artifact of every single shipwreck that we find. It's very expensive. It's very time consuming. A lot of corrosion of metals and damaged wood involves a lot of different chemical factors that need to be intervened with and take years to deal with. And it's just not something that's realistic for every single thing. And a lot of times it's better to leave things where they are because at least they can be revisited by other divers and other scholars, which won't necessarily happen if you bring things up and leave them in some sort of storage situation. So I worked on a project that was related to artifacts from a Civil War blockade runner that had been raised in the 70s and then put in ground storage. And by in ground storage tanks, I mean like holes dug on a property. It was a state project filled with water and left for years and years to keep them wet because things can't dry out. That's like the number one like bad move. So we were taking these artifacts out and cleaning them off, identifying them based on the tags that had been put in the 70s and getting them staged to be treated and properly cataloged by present day conservators and collection managers for the state. So it was a really neat project getting to see, and this kind of relates into Caroline and the world of privateers and blockade runners and resources that port towns don't have in wartime, and how these ships were carrying the ship that I was working on, the modern Greece, was carrying things like pocket knives and combs, and there were some guns, but there were a lot of domestic items, and a lot of them were made out of antler and horn. They were nice, they were fine goods, and these were things that would not have been available readily during that time in the South without commerce and trade bringing them in. And I think that's something that I really like, if we can talk about Caroline a little bit, is that that's something that she's dealing with completely being in the Great Lakes in the War of 1812. Privateers were like I'm not a War of 1812 historian, but
That hasn't stopped us. We aren't either, but
100%. And it's really funny, like the War of 1812 to me, you guys had this really great conversation about flags and our national flag, and like War of 1812 for me is don't give up the ship. Like this is the flag that I think of when I think of the War of 1812 and Oliver Hazard Perry, and he's kind of like our Lord Nelson of that time period, like celebrity for people. That's a like real inside baseball reference. Lord Nelson was a British naval captain and like hero of the Battle of Trafalgar, and kind of like died epically aboard his ship, and like his body was put in a rum cask to preserve it, to get it back. Like, the man was a legend. Oliver Hazard Perry also died, of yellow fever in South America, and wasn't put in a rum cask, but was brought back eventually to the States, and was kind of worshipped in the Great Lakes area. And when I think of like War of 1812, I'm totally thinking of like naval impressment. I don't even know anything about land battles. It's been a thing for me. Like, to me, it's like the U.S. in the Great Lakes was doing business with Canada, like Jefferson embargo. People go crazy. They start smuggling. Like, there's piracy. No one can handle it. It's mayhem. And the Navy is like, we need to be here. Like, we need to be in the Great Lakes, and Sackett's Harbor for Lake Ontario is where we're going.
So can you give us context though for those who may not know, like what is Don't Give Up the Ship?
So it's a flag that Oliver Hazard Perry had on his ship. It was something that a saying that a friend of his who was killed in a battle with the Chesapeake, another naval battle, had said. And so he had a woman stitch it onto a flag for him, and they did it in like 3 days. And he made it his battle flag. And he was in Lake Erie, but he successfully won something like 13 battles like in a row. And they had the ship, and they moved. When he named the ship after his friend Lawrence, the person who said this quote. And then they ended up moving to the Niagara. But he won these battles. He defeated Britain, and Don't Give Up the Ship became this very like Navy point of pride and like motto that everybody could stand under, which was this like, we will fight until the bitter end, essentially. And I don't know how that would have translated to people actually like living in Sackett's Harbor or places like that, Lake Erie, Presque Isle Bay, where the Niagara was, but it was a big time of like Americanism and like civic pride and all these things that you guys were discussing with the American flag. And I think that the reason that this like Don't Give Up the Ship still kind of lingers is there is that like don't quit about it, right? Like, these odds aren't good, but at the very last thing, we're just not going to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I have this print that an artist from Richmond painted of it that I keep on my office wall for those like days where I'm like, okay.
What would you say to a Caroline version that was pink instead of blue that said "Don't give up the skiff"?
100%. Okay. Can we have it on T-shirts? Can we have it on everything?
I think
I want to like. So did you guys have read Trader in the Shipyard?
Mm-hmm.
This book happened to me more than I read it, but yes. And if I may, when you were talking about your lack of qualifications, which I literally could not imagine a better qualified person to talk about Caroline and being an American girl and all of those things. You full speed read all of the Caroline books,
I
blazed
didn't.
your trail. Oh, I thought you did. Oh.
No, don't
You
give me credit for
convinced me you did. You're a great graduate student.
no, 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 no. I asked you if I should, and you
Oh,
were
you
like,
did.
and so I was like, I'm gonna read this Jessica Fletcher
Oh,
mystery, and
I
then I just
totally thought you
listened to your
did.
episodes.
Well, I was very
No, I pulled
impressed.
a Samantha.
You
I was
you
like,
did it. You did the
You're like,
Cliff
those
Notes.
stories in my mind are superior. They are like superior to these books. I thought you blazed through all of the books. My bad, my misunderstanding. But
You read the best one.
You read and
the best
crushed
one.
Traitor in the Shipyard. And we can just give a super quick synopsis because I don't know if people will have read along.
Please do.
So this book is set right after Caroline would have returned from Uncle Aaron's farm. And so she is back in Sackett's Harbor in July of 1813. So this is after the 4th of July. And from the publisher, Caroline learns British spies may be lurking. She is worried. Then a long lost friend of Papa's shows up in town. Papa is delighted to give him a job at Abbott's shipyard, but soon strange things start going wrong. Caroline is sure that a spy is making trouble, but is it one of Abbott's trusted workers, whom she has known all her life, or could it be Papa's dear friend? It's actually neither and both.
This book.
Guys, this really was like a Murder, She Wrote episode. Like, for real.
I made a joke when I went to order it, and then when I was, first of all, this is a good mystery, you guys. Like,
yeah, it is.
You know who the person is, like, relatively quickly, but I'm also not 10. And if I were 10, I would be like, what? Like,
okay, so maybe I am 10 because I didn't catch right away.
Well, my second profession is watching British murder mysteries and Murder, She Wrote. I like, if it exists, I've watched it. Like, I could bring Vera, like, and her.
I love Vera
Rover into Sackett's Harbor right now.
Do you have a Vera hat that you should throw on right now?
I wish.
Oh my god, I love Vera. Oh my god.
So, like, I consume mysteries, and I even leave, like, Midsummer Murders is what we leave on for the dogs when we go out because they, like, love British accents because I watched so much British murder mystery during quarantine, like, blazed through. This holds up. Like, what a journey.
So your dogs do seem like a bit like they might be traitors in your shipyard because we learn that the struggle here is the people who still align with the British, right? Who still want to be part of that. And we learn that it's not the friend that's returned who is the spy. It's actually his girlfriend.
Spoiler alert.
That was tough.
Did we learn? Okay. The one thing that I was not clear, I think, in this was, like, why Britain, though?
Right.
Like, I did not feel like there was a lot of explanation as to, like, they did bring up, like, and it, I did have to pull out a map, and I happen to have books, like, in my home on warships of the Great Lakes that I like pulled out to look at Sackett's Harbor, and I had this, like, original drawing of by the Navy of that area, but, like, they are close. They're super close to Canada, and they drill in a good point, like, I think for kids to understand is that, like, family would have been there. It's close enough that separation is really felt, like, not being able to go there. I don't know if I felt convinced, like, of the British cause. I don't. And they also brought up independence a lot. And, like, that wasn't really what was happening in 1812. Like, it wasn't about America's independence from Britain. But, like, whatever. I mean, that's what kids know of of our past beef with England. I thought, like, this story. Are you guys familiar with Martin Gare? The case of Martin Gare? Okay, so I thought that this was going to be, like, a sailor, like, the guy coming back and, like, is it really him? Like, this woman's gonna say it. What? Like, that's what I totally expected. And this book instead was, like, Lethal Weapon. Like, it was a buddy cop. It was Caroline and Rhonda. Like, there's a scene where she's like, they're shooting at us. She puts her finger into a powder keg, floating keg of gunpowder mine, essentially, which is what mines were at the time. Sticks her finger into it and is like, this is gunpowder. Time to go. It was insanity.
She was on the front
Insanity.
lines. She was on the front lines. And you have to wonder, like, the dad, we've kind of been like tracking through these books, like what's up with dad. And like the fact that just prior to that outing in the skiff with Rhonda doing some investigative work, he like in seemingly early evening, he's like, hey girls, like it's nice out. Why don't you go on the boat? And it's like we have all these break-ins happening at the shipyard. And he's like, guys, like still some sunlight out there. I'll walk you down and then I'm leaving. And it's like he's letting them go off for like hours by themselves during a war
We
when
need to
there's
talk about
break-ins at the
Papa.
shipyard. Yeah.
Is he okay? First of all,
It's
like
not
I want to go
okay.
back to I have a note for the naval commander. I'm going to give it to this 10-year-old
Wow.
to run through the busiest town full of thousands of people, they say. And it was like a hugely busy area. And I'm going to give this 10-year-old a very important letter. Do you think like his prisoner of war time made him just completely lose parenting ability?
100%.
Because the things that he does with her through this book, where he's like, he even comes home to Mama at one point and is like, I've, we solved this mystery, but there's also a twist at the end of this book, and we have more investigating to do, and I'm taking Caroline.
He's like, she's earned the right. She put her finger in a
Yes,
mine. She earned
yes,
the right to do
she
like
saved us.
so she's coming with and like didn't you
We're
think
gonna
it
go
was
try to
weird?
trap spies in a
Yes.
meeting. We're gonna catch them on a cliffside in the dark. Me and my 10-year-old.
Okay, I have something to say about that scene and I don't know if it's appropriate, so I'm just gonna like say it anyway and you guys can like correct me. But when he takes her down to that cliffside, and that's where like we are told by Hosea that like black sailors hang out to just like have some peace and quiet away from white people, which like understandable. And like this
Mm-hmm.
is where Mr. Osborne, the maybe spy at this point, is meeting up with the naval whatever administrator who he could be in cahoots
Yeah,
with.
paymaster.
When they get down there, I literally was like, this could be like a queer space, and he's taking like a 9-year-old to like a hookup spot. Like
Yep.
that's where my head went, and maybe
So
that's
they're in fire.
wrong.
So you're like they're in like the woods in Fire Island.
Kind of, but I was like,
That's what's happening.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It's like a private space,
Anything.
and so why he's like, yeah, obviously it's a private space on a cliffside. I don't know what would have happened there, but my point is like, you're bringing a 9-year-old by the hand with you, and all you know is that it's like a private space for adults, and you're just like, yeah, she's earned the right. Again, anything that comes up, she gets to come with.
You know how like and you guys will know a lot more about this. Like I haven't like revisited a lot of children's literature, but in mysteries that are for kids, I feel like there's often like kids exploring things by themselves and they kind of like happen to solve the thing completely without adults, right? Like adults come in at the very end and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, you were right, end of story." I felt like this whole book was an adult space
Mm.
and she was like traversing like first of all, I wouldn't send it to 10-year-olds alone for like pleasure boating on Lake Ontario. Like, nope, that's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So the all the times where he's like, get out on the water, get out on the water. Most of what she's doing is stuff that is like very alongside adults that is like very questionable to me. Like why they're like, yes, please come into this danger zone.
I think it's very suspicious that her mother and grandmother totally kind of drop out of the narrative because we've had a lot of questions about them for the past 6 books. And it seems really extra strange that when we're learning about traitors and spies, they've actually pretty much just because they're a really big part of the other books and they kind of fade away. There's also something that I think based on reading the author's blog, there was a lot of different plot points that she wanted to get into the 6 canonical books that didn't make it in for just whatever reason through like editing and different parts of the process. And I think what's really telling is in the back, the mention that at least a quarter of the seamen would have been African American. I think this was the book that finally kind of allowed her to actually tell that story. And I think it really does change your perception because Hosea Barton, who is in all of the books to some degree, is kind of just a vehicle for Caroline to get other things that she wants. And then the length of the conversation, to your point about it being adult spaces, Caroline and Hosea have like a pretty full fledged conversation about why for him fighting in this shipyard for a country that would enslave him isn't ethical and isn't the thing that he wants to do, and her actually trying to process that. To me, if this was a different kind of product or in a different kind of world, that would have been an entire book. But I think this was
Yeah.
probably the only place where that story like was allowed to be told or allowed to be put out. But I think that was a really compelling conversation between a child and adult, like genuinely trying to understand. And the million miles between that and Felicity in one of her books telling a free black man that he should just like go for it and join the cause, even though he might die as a result of that, and fight for a country that doesn't see his freedom as valid or important. I was like, wow, honestly, this is one of the places where you see a huge difference between the early books and these later books, because this is 2013.
That was such a good moment when she kind of is hiding and catches that conversation. I don't remember the name of the person Hosea was it George?
George, I
That
think.
Hosea was talking with. I completely remember. I think kids all have a moment where they come across an adult conversation that they overhear that is about something in the orbit of their lives, and they don't know how to process the information. It's like an information dump of things that are like so not on their radar. And I thought that scene was so good in terms of an adult, like you said, an adult relating information to a child in a way that is realistic, like conveying the reality of the situation and not, dumbing it down for her or just telling her to ignore it or forget it, which, kids listen to everything. They're not going to forget that. And she thinks about it a lot through the rest of the book. I mean, until the very end of the book. I wish that had more time. I do think that was like a completely separate story within this.
Can I tell you my favorite line in this book?
Yes.
So I'll tell you my favorite line and then the moment that made me realize I'm not as Caroline as I'd like. So there's a moment where Caroline and Rhonda are talking about the mechanics of shipbuilding. And to your point, it is kind of fascinating that they're allowed to have conversations where Caroline is relatively an expert compared to Rhonda, but doesn't actually know the full story. And they have this quick discussion about how it's built. And Rhonda says, please remind me what oakum is.
Yes,
and I love that because it was a way of teaching us a word and showing that Caroline actually has learned some things in her 10 years, 11 years of being around. And then there's this separate moment where she's had a conversation with grandma and she's feeling kind of dejected. To your point also, I totally thought that Cyrus Osborne was a pretender and that was going to come out, that this man was not who he said he was. But Caroline has this moment of resolve and she thinks to herself, taking action always felt better than complaining. And I thought this is like a way of situating her in a mindset that I very much do not agree with, because I think complaining is essential to life. But I just love that moment where she's like, I'll feel better if I just keep going. Cut to her with a finger in a powder keg. So not always.
My God.
The other scene that was really real for me was her breaking the necklace.
Yes.
Because I, like, as a kid, somehow, like, I remember I broke a window in my grandmother's house on the second floor. I don't know why. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I remember like instantly bursting out in tears. And I was like older than like a person who like breaks out in tears. But I was so overwhelmed with the fact that like I was doing something I probably shouldn't have been. Like, why was I touching this window? How did it break? How am I going to convey this to the adult downstairs? That moment where she's like trying to fix that necklace was like, I was in that anxiety with her.
And the necklace, if you haven't read the book, becomes really essential to the plot line because we learn that there is a secret message contained within it. And I think it was smart that the book doesn't get too bogged down in like ciphers and codes, but we learn that would have happened, right? And I think this is like a bigger trend in the Caroline books, that like women are actually carriers of important information. Like women are not involved in military acts, but women have this powerful role as kind of conveyors or communicators.
I thought it was interesting that at the end of the book, they're very, like, Papa is super vague about what's going to happen to these people. When Caroline's like, well, what's going to happen to her? And he's like, well, like, something. But, the guy's going to have a worse punishment. And so you're like, okay, but that doesn't tell me what's going to happen to her. And then he's like, oh, and by the way, like, Paul is going to come back to work at the shipyard.
Yeah. So Paul is the apprentice.
Was so weird, right?
Yes, it was.
She was like, you're going to be my friend. You're like, she was pushing
that
it with this dude who was not speaking. It turns out at the end, there's a very elaborate story about like how he's essentially a plant, like a British
Right.
plant. And I think like I was very confused about like why he would like why that story made him decide to be a British plant. It wasn't like very, it was kind of the opposite too of what I expected. Like, you know, the British were kidnapping people, including
Mm-hmm.
children, to work for them and make them British citizens, even if they had proof that they were American citizens, and were impressing them into the Navy. This was happening like a lot in, you know, all over the world, basically where the British Navy was. And so this opposite story that this child was like treated badly, but then was treated well by the British, and so they made him a spy, was like kind of the opposite tale of what I expected
Hmm.
that to be.
So Paul's a cautionary tale about toys because one of the first things we learn about him, and literally the first scene where we meet Caroline, she's playing with a toy on the deck of a ship and she's having fun, but she has to learn a lesson about that. Paul doesn't know what jack straws are. He's new to the shipyard. He's new to making like young people friends, and he doesn't know about basic toys. And by the end, one of the ways that Paul kind of like gets assimilated into the shipyard is Paul learns about toys. So if you don't give your kids the right things to play with from the American Girl catalog, they could defect and join ISIS. That's how I read this as a 2013 book.
Wow.
He also came back for the toys.
Yes, right. Like the toys
Yeah.
are actually central.
That's the reason he's even discovered.
Right. Right.
Because he's like, I can't leave those pickup sticks. That's what jack straws are for the unfamiliar.
I think it's just weird for me because this book would work. The plot would actually function the exact same way if he was not in the book. So, like, what work is he doing in this book?
I think Paul is moral ambiguity because I think there are two sides, and Caroline always is stalwart in what she believes and can't be swayed. And I think it was a good way to show tension in a child. Like Paul goes two different ways depending on how he's being pulled. And I think that's probably realistic, right? And we see Hosea basically saying like people are weighing this, right? Like this is a war that has some ideological tension in it and people are making really hard choices. I think honestly, if you were to read one Caroline book with kids, this book hits that really, really well. Like more so than the other six, where Caroline gets a flag and is excited. This book gives you something to think about where people had, 2 or so years into the war to make difficult choices for themselves. And Paul's a kid and he has to do that too.
A lot of the book, like the two sus people are Paul and, oh my gosh, what is his name?
Cyrus and Lucinda.
Cyrus, thank you. So she's sus of Cyrus and Paul because they both showed up at the same time.
Yes.
Right? She also has this I literally wrote in the margin of my book, super casual conversation about prisoner of war status, where she's like, so tell me about your time being a prisoner. Like, and she's really casual about her dad's time being a prisoner. Like, it's like no big thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like, this is like a super traumatic transforming, like this man, I can't believe he got home, like based on what I know of British prisoners of war. And at least she does recognize like her father's connection to Cyrus. Like that's the tension, right? Her like belief in Paul as like a kid like her, and her belief in Cyrus as like a loyal friend. She like acknowledges that friendship, but her whole attitude about the prisoner of war thing is like so funny to me. So light.
It's also weird that she's like, yeah, so why didn't you go back to your family farm that you were running before this? And he was like, well, like my brother and his wife like took it over. And I was like, wait a second, what's that story? And he's like, so, I make chairs and, that's what I was doing. It was like, that's another whole book.
I had to go where no one knows me.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Right. More.
Something I want on a t-shirt. It's hard to believe that someone bad could pick out such a lovely necklace, which is Rhonda and Caroline puzzling over whether they can trust Lucinda. And I do think it's fascinating. There's something both childlike and universal about Caroline and Rhonda having to deal with the fact that this woman who's really nice to them might also be the cause of all this harm in the shipyard, right? Things are they're being set on fire, things are being destroyed, there's all of these very real problems. And she looks at that also with her father and Cyrus, right? Like this guy that seems to really just be friendly. Like, could he also be doing these things that are causing them harm? I thought that was a smart way that, if you think of this for a 10 or 11-year-olds, right? Like people don't wear evil stickers on their forehead, right? You have to make really long-term calculated assessments of the people that you meet. And one thing I like about the book is the way that her father affirms at the end that he should have believed her all along, right? Like that she tried to tell him things about issues with the mail and that he should have always believed her. I thought that was like a good lesson to include towards the end.
Her behavior is also really, despite her suspicions, she treats the people respectfully through the whole thing, which I think is another good lesson about, giving yourself space to consider people, because she ended up being wrong about Cyrus. What, like, as a child she could have really mistreated that person or any person. It's just a good, she's such a like kind and relatable person, Caroline. I just wish, going back to Samantha, like, I love her, but man.
Wow. Well, maybe you had to
Sorry.
go there to come here. It's the climb, so to speak. You're on a journey.
I mean, Caroline has a skiff. Like, Caroline
Mm-hmm.
the doll has a skiff. I sent Allison like listings for them. She's like, you could have this in your home. I know I could, but I'm sticking with Samantha. And, I wasn't of the Caroline time. Like, I wish Caroline was still a doll. I don't understand. Maybe, I don't know if you guys have talked about why she was discontinued. Do you guys know?
I
So
don't
there
know.
are theories. There's a lot of different information out there about the hair actually being a big reason why she wasn't in production. Her hair is very long. It is exceptionally long in comparison to the other dolls. There's a lot of different reasons,
This
but
is not
her
what I expected
I
to come out of her mouth.
would love to say
Hair is a
again,
real problem.
much like the War of 1812, ideology is not always at the forefront. It's market forces. That's what a lot of people say, that the hair was also the cause of a lot of complaints because parents didn't like how difficult it was to take care of that much hair. I also just think the War of 1812 was never going to be the Civil War. It was never going to have the moment, right? The bicentennial moment of other times. But if you look at the Caroline aftermarket, you can be paying $400 for a doll now. It also struck
Man,
me in talking to you that you are a long haired blonde maritime historian. Like, Caroline might be you more than you are Caroline.
wow.
Oh. I mean, does that mean I need to go online? First of all, you're driving the prices up as we're having this conversation,
Yes, yes,
because we
yes,
are now like
Our
inflating this
apologies.
market.
yes, yes.
You have a Caroline though? You got one.
I do. I do. I have a lot of
If I
tricks.
had your address, I was gonna send you that skiff without even telling you.
Stop. She
I was
and
just
I,
gonna send the skiff to your house because I thought it was hilarious.
she and I would have a ball with that because I introduced her to Kaya's horse and she was not impressed because that's just not really of her background. It's not of her interest. She's currently hanging out with my Rebecca next to a little container of like early 19th century treasures. And I like to think that that makes her happy, but I know that she belongs on the water. I've only taken her to the waterfront once and she really liked it, but her hair wasn't braided the way I would have liked. So the photos are kind of embarrassing.
I mean, my Samantha's hair is in terrible condition right now. My own hair is in terrible condition right now.
I won't hear that.
It's
No.
difficult to manage for people with wavy hair. I feel like, don't give up the ship. Like, don't give
Wow.
up on your hair. Don't give up on this doll. Don't give up on the things that are hard. Like, we're all getting through. This doll is like the doll of our quarantine. Like,
That's
She
true.
found us. I do. I
hero.
think these books are wonderful.
As a random bonus, James Fenimore Cooper was under Woolsey in Saga's Harbor. If Daniel Day-Lewis was going to be in the film version of this book, I think he plays Cyrus's girlfriend. Do you guys have thoughts? Like,
Wow.
method actor, like he,
What's he
I
bringing to the
don't, I
role?
think,
Like, what do you see? What do you see for that? What do you see for his like interpretation?
again, I see hair. This
Okay.
is weird, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I mean, just roll with it.
he gets long hair.
Okay.
He gets a necklace.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes the milkshake, the necklace. He lives in this world. I mean, that's what he does. He lives as this woman.
Yeah. He starts laundering naval shirts from the War of 1812 just to
A
like
hundred
feel
percent,
it.
100%. And it's his
Wow.
next Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't think the world is ready for it. I would cast Paul Dano in the role of Paul the Apprentice because he has that kind of like doughy naivete that I think is perfect for Paul. And I think we could age him up a little bit more and make the friendship borderline inappropriate because that's like Paul Dano's exact lane.
I
Hmm.
I also feel like this, first of all, like if any, I don't know, I haven't read all the American Girl dolls, so this is going to be like a hyperbole moment, but like this clearly is the best book for a movie of all,
Yes.
of all
Yes.
the American Girl books, but it also could be a 10-minute Taylor Swift music video
Wow.
It could.
with the casting that we're talking about. This
Yes.
could be a film. It could also be Daniel Day-Lewis living as this woman for 2 years just to make a 10-minute music video that is also a 10th anniversary revenge mixtape. I mean,
My God. I'm casting Daniel Day-Lewis as grandma. Sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where
also,
I
he
see
could play
him.
both roles. She's like so
Oh, wow.
underrepresented in this book. There's one moment where she like casts side eye. Is it Miss Letitia? What is her
Yeah.
name? I keep like
Lucinda.
Lucinda, thank you. He's like, he casts, he cast a side eye at her. I feel like she should have been side eyeing everybody the whole book long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed more grandma and less Papa take me to the hookup spot.
Yeah. Aidan Quinn in the role of Papa because that's been predetermined because he looks exactly like him.
Who are you guys casting as Caroline?
Blake Lively, and I won't explain further.
Okay.
I love Blake Lively.
It doesn't matter what her age is.
What is the name of the actress who, oh no, I'm going to do that thing where like do you remember that show on HBO that was about the Mormon family
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
Bill Paxton?
Oh,
Chloe Sevigny.
No, the other, she was the daughter, that woman.
Amanda Seyfried?
Yes.
I forgot she was in that show.
You guys are like really the Emily.
No, I just thought you would say. Thought you would have said Mamma Mia. I thought you would have said Mamma Mia. That's right. Like her nautical adjacent word.
Oh my God. People are
I mean,
in their
she's on a sailboat in that. She goes on a sailboat in Mamma Mia.
She is. Meryl Streep as grandma.
She's also in Les Miserables, by the way, which I also mentioned earlier. So she can sing on the water in her boat.
I can't engage that.
Easily survive sticking her finger in a keg.
Listen, she survived her own mystery of who her father was just days before her own wedding. In Mamma Mia, Thank You to Remember, one of the greatest films of all time. And I sort of have a super cut in my mind where I only include one scene from Mamma Mia 2, and it's just Cher coming down a staircase, if you know what I'm talking about.
Emily, we may never make it to the bottom of the ocean. Like, we may never actually get there in our lifetimes. We may never know how deep it is. Much like the fact that there was a giant squid type that was discovered while we first met, I would say this.
Love that though?
I did love that. That was fascinating. We have talked about so many different things. If people want to find you, are you open to additional Amanda Seyfried options? Are you open to more War of 1812 talk? Are you open
100%.
to different
Titanic.
flag combos? How do people find you
First
on
of
the
all,
web?
I just want to take a moment to compliment you guys on like Allison said, I've known her for a while. This podcast is so good. And you guys are amazing. I know how much work it is to do something like this on top of like the research and things we do all day long. You guys have also built like an amazing community of people. I've been in the Discord. I did a watch along with you guys for Pretty in Pink. I was in that Discord watch along. So I would love to talk to people. I have a Instagram that I like never update, but will. So I'm at EP by the Sea, and I'm in the Discord at Shifting Shoal. So both maritime puns, you guys.
I love that for you. And on our Discord, we actually have a channel called Guest Speaker AMA.
Yes.
So maybe
Awesome.
we'll invite you to, like, if people want to ask you questions on the
A
Discord, they
hundred
can use that
percent.
space.
100%.
And we'll
I'm
see you.
ready
It's a
to talk
space to
about.
like give a TED talk without being obnoxious and actually a
Yeah,
good TED talk. No offense. Some
yeah.
TED talks are
And we
good.
can talk about any of the, if we're talking about Princess Mako or Christine leaving,
Maybe that's where we
Cody.
get into the Kennedys. Like maybe you and I save it for the Discord. And
Yes.
like I can't get into PT 109 at this time, but just know that I'm deeply invested in that. And the
We
JFK of it all.
I have some offline info for you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll talk.
See? Yeah,
We'll
okay.
talk.
Okay. Whew. Wow. Allison, if people would like to get in touch with you to talk about more dream casting, anything related to Caroline, where might they find you?
So you can find my new hair art Etsy shop at misslucindasecrets.org.
Oh my God.
Otherwise,
Wow.
you can reach out to me at Allison Horrocks on Twitter and Instagram. You can find the show on Twitter at A Girls Pod. An American Girls Podcast is also on Facebook, Instagram, and we have a website with everything from our P.O. box to our telephone number. Mary, if people have other PT 105 top secret intel, where do they find you?
That's, a t-shirt I do own, Emily, so I will
How do I get one?
I will make you one and I will send it to you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to do this
Miss
for you.
Lucinda's, let's open this Miss Lucinda's shop.
Honestly,
Because
the
I
only
also
man
have an obsession with wigs.
Oh, God.
I used to have a wigs Tumblr, you guys.
I'm going to
True
need a link.
confession.
I'm going to need a link to that
I need to
almost
find it. Somebody
immediately.
has already found, as they're listening to this, it was
They
called
found
Wigs
it.
That I Love. I posted on it 3 times maybe. Because I watch movies and I judge people's wigs, like how good the wig is or how bad the wig is, because it's always a
Okay,
wig.
can we talk? You need to stop this podcast and go read the Mike Nichols biography that came out a couple months ago because it's about wigs more than you would think.
Stop it.
Yes, Elizabeth Taylor, like he came to visit her on set doing Cleopatra, and she was just like straight up like, "This man's wig is awful, and you need to help him." To her gay hairstylist,
I
she was
know
like,
you
"Thank
guys
you."
love the Little Women. I'm sorry, I'm jumping to so many things. I know you guys are like, I get why the Winona Ryder Little Women is your Little Women. I was obsessed with Christian Bale as a teen and I couldn't handle that. It was like too much. But
I hear you.
also, like, Elizabeth Taylor is Amy for me. Like, you guys.
I don't want to scare you, but to my class yesterday, I referenced Elizabeth Taylor. We were talking about AIDS, not to bring the room down, but it's a public health class. And I was like, yeah, so Elizabeth Taylor and like talking about AMFAR, and they were like, who's that? The entire class. They were like, who's that? And I
I'm
was like,
surprised they're still not showing that commercial for what was her perfume?
White Diamonds. Yes. And I brought that up and I was like,
Christmas.
Yes.
You guys, it's Christmas time, it's holiday time. Allison's new store is going to carry White Diamonds.
It's going to happen. White Diamonds is happening. We will roll the commercial.
Wigs,
yeah, wigs.
Everyone should have the right to the hair they want. Production should not stop. When I was at Mystic, one of my good friends, Amanda, who you know, Allison, had a American Girls doll that she had wigs for, and they are available online. And she switched that because there was like a hair issue with the doll she got online, and this was like a whole new, like, wow. You guys, don't be a me and just keep your doll on the shelf. Like, wow. Also, you don't need to just follow the books. If you want wigs, put the wigs on. My sister-in-law has repaired a number of American Girl dolls by straight up jacking them apart and putting them back together. Like,
people can do it. I mean, people can just get out there. And I just want to like throw out to the room and to the listeners, like, my dream casting of Caroline is Kirsten Dunst, very specifically as she appears in her most recent Architectural Digest open house video tour, in which she appears with her own interior decorator, and you learn from seeing all the rooms of her house that she has an inordinate amount of model ships as a part of her personal aesthetic in her house.
You know, she's from the Jersey Shore too. My aunt was her gym teacher when she was a kid.
But I have many follow-up questions I will ask off air, but I will just tell you that what you learn about her heritage in her house is that she's Swedish, and that's it. So I'm sorry.
Do you think she had a Kirsten?
I think she is Kirsten.
And do you think because the Kirsten debacle of like people who are Kirstens and people who are Kirstens.
You're asking all the tough questions. Like, I don't.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm just like, I'm so floored by you. Like, I don't even know what to say. sometimes life is about setting boundaries and sometimes it's not, but so we can continue. We're working on boundaries. One of our boundaries could be
boundaries.
Listen, that's the story of adulthood, right? But thank you so much for being here. We will continue chatting offline, but thanks to everyone who's joined us for this part of the convo. If you're on our Discord, please check it out. We will invite Emily to graciously answer any and all of your questions there and on her Instagram, which maybe she'll post to, maybe not. Maybe the wig tumbler. I don't know. But thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.